Maddox Zane didn't want to be seen, didn't want to talk, didn't want to think, he just wanted to drive. The back tires of his black Aston Martin DB11 groaned against the rain-slick asphalt as he pulled onto the Pacific Coast Highway, the ocean crashing beside him. He wore a plain hoodie, no watch, no security detail tailing him, for once just a billionaire trying to forget the weight of a life too loud. He needed quiet. Not just silence, but stillness. Something real. The city lights faded in his rearview mirror, and for a moment it was just him and the road until he saw her. She was standing next to a beat-up sedan, hood popped, hazard lights blinking weakly in the dark. Her hair was soaked, jacket clinging to her like a second skin, and she looked like she'd been crying. He should have kept driving, but he didn't. Maddox slowed to a stop a few feet behind her car, rolled down his window, and asked, "You all right?" The woman turned, startled. She blinked through the rain. "Do I look all right?" There was something about the way she said it, honest, no filter, no fake smile. Maddox found himself opening the door and stepping out before he could second-guess it. "I've got jumper cables," he said, popping his trunk. "Battery? Dead, I think," she muttered, brushing wet strands of hair from her face. "I didn't mean to end up out here. I was supposed to be in LA hours ago. My GPS glitched and now I'm stuck in the middle of nowhere." He hooked up the cables in silence, then glanced at her. "Where in LA?" "Honestly, no clue. I just moved. I'm supposed to start a new job tomorrow." "You moved to LA without knowing where you're going?" "I had a plan," she said, folding her arms. "Then life laughed in my face." He looked at her, really looked. She was soaked, shivering, stubborn as hell, but her eyes held a spark that pulled something loose in his chest. "What's your name?" he asked. "Marley Prescott," she said. "And you?" He paused. "Maddox." "No last name, no need to complicate things." The engine roared back to life. Marley let out a breath of relief and leaned against the car, eyes closed for a second. "Thanks," she said. "Really? You shouldn't be driving this thing in a storm," he said, eyeing the rusted door and worn tires. "It's not safe." "Well, unfortunately, it's the only car I've got. And I can't exactly afford a hotel tonight." He hesitated. A storm, a stranger, a night he wasn't supposed to be out, but somehow it felt like the universe had stopped him for a reason. "There's a diner about 20 minutes up the road," he said. "I was heading there to clear my head." "You're welcome to come. It's warm, dry, and they've got the best cherry pie on the coast." She studied him. "You don't look like the type of guy who eats at roadside diners." "I don't look like the type of guy who stops to help strangers either," he said. "But I did." Something flickered in her expression. Trust, maybe, curiosity, or just desperation. "All right," she said slowly, "but only because I'm starving." They drove in silence, her following behind his car until they pulled into a small diner lit with flickering neon. Inside, it smelled like coffee and fried food. Marley slid into the booth across from him, still damp, cheeks flushed from the wind. "I feel like I should say something profound," she said, wrapping her hands around the mug of coffee the waitress dropped off. "But I'm too tired." "No need," Maddox said. "I didn't want to talk tonight anyway." She raised a brow. "Then why'd you invite me?" He didn't answer right away. His eyes dropped to her hands, fingernails chipped, knuckles red from the cold. She wasn't polished like the women who usually surrounded him. She was real. "Maybe I didn't want to be alone," he said finally. Marley didn't push. They ate in silence for a while, him, steak and eggs, her pancakes with way too much syrup. "You said you moved here for work?" he asked eventually. She nodded. "I'm starting as a receptionist at a design firm. It's not glamorous, but it's a start. I've been saving for this move for 2 years." "What made you do it?" she shrugged. "I was stuck. Small town, same faces, same routine. I wanted more. I want to build something that's mine." He watched her talk, her eyes lighting up a little despite everything, and he couldn't help it. He grinned. "What?" she asked. "Nothing," he said. You've got guts." "I've got bills," she said dryly, then laughed. He liked her laugh. It was loud, unfiltered, almost too much, and exactly what he hadn't known he needed. When they walked out of the diner an hour later, the rain had stopped. Marley looked up at the sky and smiled. "Stars," she whispered. It's been so long since I saw them. Maddox handed her a folded bill. For gas or a better hotel. She unfolded it and her jaw dropped. This is $500. You need a safer car, he said simply. And I don't want to worry you'll break down again. Her mouth opened and closed. Are you serious? Yeah, she stared at him. Who are you? He didn't answer. Instead, he looked at her like she was the first thing in years that had made him forget the noise, the pressure, the headlines, the boardrooms. Can I see you again? He asked quietly. She blinked. Seriously, tomorrow, dinner. I'll pick you up after your first day. I don't even have a place to stay yet. I'll help you find one. She hesitated. Why are you being so nice? He stepped closer, brushing a damp strand of hair from her cheek. Because I didn't expect to meet someone tonight. And now I don't want to let you go, Marley swallowed. Okay, dinner, Maddox smiled. Good. She turned to her car, then looked back. Hey, Maddox? Yeah, I think I was supposed to break down tonight. He watched her drive away, heart thudding in his chest, and for the first time in years he didn't feel alone. He didn't know it yet, but that quiet night drive had just changed everything. Maddox stood outside the small rental agency in Westwood, arms folded as he leaned against a sleek charcoal Range Rover. His hood was down today, the morning sun casting a sharp angle across the side of his face as he waited. He didn't usually wait for people, but this wasn't usual. Marley exited the building with a key in her hand and a map printed on the back of a crumpled invoice. She looked different in the daylight, less like a stranded stranger, more like someone trying to piece her life together one careful decision at a time. Furnished studio near Sawtell, she said as she reached him. It smells like old wood and ambition, but it'll do, he nodded once. Good neighborhood, quiet. I figured you'd say that, she said, giving him a look. You seem like someone who values quiet. I value peace, Maddox said. But lately it's been hard to come by. She opened the passenger door and hesitated. You're sure you don't mind driving me to work? I can figure out the buses. I already cleared my morning, he said. Get in. She climbed into the car, glancing around at the interior. She didn't ask questions. She didn't comment on the stitched leather seats or the minimalist dashboard. But she noticed. He could see it in the way her fingers hovered over the seatbelt clasp just a second too long. As he pulled into traffic, she leaned back and exhaled. I didn't think yesterday could be topped in terms of weirdness. But here we are. You expected normal? I expected to eat a granola bar in my car and cry before my first day. Well, he said, keeping his eyes on the road, we can still make that happen. She let out a soft laugh, then turned to study him. What do you do, Maddox? He didn't answer right away. I manage investments, vague, intentionally, she tilted her head. You're not going to tell me, are you? Not yet. Why not? He gave her a sidelong glance. Because I like the way you talk to me now. She blinked, caught off guard. And how exactly is that? You don't expect anything. She fell quiet, watching the palm trees slide past. Then, maybe I should. He pulled up in front of a narrow building with a glass entrance and a plaque that read Wren and Mason Design Group. Marley looked at it, then down at her lap. This is it, she said. My big new life. You'll be fine. You don't know that. I don't need to. She unbuckled and paused. Are you picking me up after? I'll be here at 6. She opened the door but didn't step out. You're a stranger. You know that, right? He met her eyes. You don't feel like one. She hesitated again, then got out without another word. Maddox didn't pull away immediately. He watched her disappear through the glass doors before shifting into gear. He didn't return to his office. Instead, he drove to a rooftop cafe in Santa Monica, where his assistant, Elliot, was already waiting with a tablet and 3 missed calls from the Zurich office. You look like hell, Elliot said, handing him a coffee. I didn't sleep much. Because of the storm or the woman you rescued in it? Maddox didn't look up. How do you know about that? Because your security team had a mild heart attack when you went off-grid for 5 hours. They tracked your car to a diner in the middle of nowhere. After that, they gave up. He took a slow sip. Tell them to stand down unless I say otherwise. Elliot raised an eyebrow. You don't usually get involved with civilians. She's not a project. I didn't say she was. Maddox finally looked up. I'm not interested in the usual right now. Because the usual makes too much sense. Because the usual feels like noise. Elliot didn't press further. He handed over the tablet. You need to sign off on the Sydney expansion by end of day. Maddox stared at the screen, then set it aside. Push it to tomorrow. Elliot frowned. You never push, I'm pushing now. That night, he stood outside Marley's building again at exactly 6. She stepped out a few minutes later, jacket slung over her shoulder, hair tied up, eyes tired but steady. Hey, she said as she slid into the car. I survived, not surprised. Everyone in that office wears beige and uses words like synergy unironically. You'll outlast them, she laughed. I don't know, maybe I'm the weird one. Maddox pulled into traffic without answering. She glanced at him. You're not going to tell me where we're going, you'll see. They drove through winding streets in the hills until they reached a steel gate that opened silently before them. Marley stared as they passed through, her breath catching as the driveway curved around to reveal a sprawling glass-walled structure overlooking the city. This is a restaurant, she asked. No, he parked and got out, coming around to open her door. She climbed out slowly, her eyes never leaving the house. Wait, this is your place? He didn't answer. She turned to him. You said you just manage investments. I do, right, and I just sell lemonade on weekends. He led her up the steps without responding. Inside, the house was minimalist and warm stone, wood, soft lighting. No art on the walls, no clutter, just space and stillness. Why bring me here? She asked as he handed her a glass of wine from a built-in cooler. You said you didn't have a place to relax yet, he said. Thought you could use one tonight. She took the wine, eyes narrowed. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone who disappears after one night. Someone who doesn't show up the next day with a car ride and a full-blown skyline view. He leaned against the counter. I don't do things halfway. She sipped the wine slowly. So what is this, then? I don't know yet, he said, but I want to find out. She set the glass down. You don't even know me. I know enough to know I want to. She looked at him, really looked this time not at the house or the car or the wine, but at the man who had chosen not to explain himself just yet. Okay, she said finally. But here's the deal. No lies, no games. If I'm going to be here, I want the truth, he nodded once. Then I'll give it to you. She picked up the glass again. Starting tomorrow, agreed. And just like that, a line had been drawn, not a boundary, not yet, but a beginning. And Maddox, who had built his empire on control, had just handed over the first piece of it to a woman who didn't even have a couch yet. The scent of roasted garlic drifted through the open terrace doors as Marley stepped barefoot onto the stone patio, her eyes drawn past the glass railing and out toward the city stretched below them in shimmering gold. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, casting plum shadows across the hills. Inside, Maddox moved with quiet precision, plating the last of the food himself. No chef, no staff, no background noise. Just the clink of silverware, the rustle of linen, and 2 wine glasses catching the last of the light. I didn't realize Billionaires cooked, Marley said as he joined her outside with 2 plates. I don't, he said, setting hers down, but tonight felt like an exception. She sat across from him, eyeing the roasted chicken, charred broccolini, and what looked like handmade pasta. You made all of this. I followed instructions. Mostly. She took a bite, paused, and looked up. This is incredible, like stupid good, he gave a small shrug. I had some help from a friend in Milan. She walked me through it over a call. You have friends in Milan who give out recipes? She owed me a favor. Marley leaned back in her chair, wine glass in hand. You keep saying things like that, like favors and investments and people who just do what you say. He met her gaze. You asked for honesty, so give me some. He didn't break eye contact. My name is Maddox Zane. I own 41 companies, I sit on 7 boards, I've been on the cover of financial magazines more times than I can count. And I've spent most of my adult life surrounded by people who only see what I can give them, not who I am. She stared at him for a long moment. Why tell me now? Because I don't want to lie to you by omission. And you think I'm different? I know you are. She took another sip of wine, then set it down. So what happens now? You've laid out your truth. Am I supposed to be impressed? Intimidated? No. Then what? I want to see if anything about us still feels real now that the mystery's gone. Marley looked out at the skyline, lips pressed together in thought. You know what's funny? When I was younger, I thought rich people were just comfortable. Like their lives were padded, but you don't seem comfortable at all. No, he said softly. Comfort's not the same as peace. They ate in silence for a few minutes, the sounds of the city below distant and unobtrusive. After a while, Marley set down her fork and leaned on her elbows. I've got a brother, she said suddenly. Jackson, he's younger than me, still in our hometown, works at a tire shop. He thinks I'm crazy for leaving. Why'd you really leave? Maddox asked. She picked at the edge of her napkin. My mom passed 2 years ago, cancer. It was fast. After that, everything felt too heavy. Every building, every person. I couldn't breathe there anymore, so I saved, sold her car, and left. He didn't speak, just listened. I've never told anyone that, she said, glancing at him. Not even people I've known for years. Why me? Because you didn't ask me to. Something shifted in the air between them, not tension, something quieter. Maddox stood and walked to the edge of the terrace, hands in his pockets. My father built everything I inherited: money, reputation, legacy. But he never taught me how to be still. He only taught me how to win. Marley joined him, standing beside him but not touching. Do you want to win with me? No, he said, turning to face her. I want to stop running. She didn't speak. Instead, she reached out and touched his hand. He didn't flinch, just let her fingers settle over his like they belonged there. He turned his palm upward, lacing their fingers together. I'm not ready to call this anything, she said softly, but I'm not walking away. I don't want you to. That night, he drove her back to her apartment. He didn't offer to walk her up. He didn't try to kiss her. But when she turned before going inside, she looked at him like she was memorizing the moment. I don't want to get swallowed up by your world, she said. I need to stay me. You're the only thing in my life that feels unshakable, he said. Don't change. She smiled, small and sure. Then don't let me disappear. He watched her vanish into the building, the door clicking softly shut behind her. Later, Maddox stood alone in his home office, the lights dimmed, the city humming below. On his desk sat a single envelope sealed in navy wax. Inside was a proposal to acquire a media firm that had been on the verge of collapse for a year. He picked it up, stared at it, then set it aside without opening it. Instead, he reached for his phone, dialing a number from memory. Get me out of every meeting tomorrow, he said when Elliot answered. I want the day free. There was a pause. All of them? Yes. Understood. He hung up and leaned back, the silence pressing in, but it didn't feel heavy this time. It felt deliberate. He had no idea where this was going, but for the first time in years, Maddox Zane wasn't trying to control the outcome. He was just letting it happen. Maddox stepped into the sun-drenched atrium of the Los Angeles Philharmonic's private rooftop garden. His tailored charcoal jacket slung over his arm, his expression unreadable. The space had been closed to the public for the evening quietly. Discreetly, and the only people present were the quartet tuning their instruments and the woman standing with her back to him, her hands resting lightly on the stone railing. Marley turned when she heard his footsteps, her lips parted in surprise. You said we were going to dinner. We are, Maddox said, walking toward her. But first, I wanted to show you something. She looked around the tucked-away garden, the string lights woven into the rose vines, the copper lanterns flickering gently against the marble. You did all this, I made a call. Her eyes narrowed slightly. I told you not to try to impress me. I'm not, he said. I'm trying to find something that feels like us. This felt close. The musicians began to play something soft, unfamiliar, but aching with warmth. Marley stepped closer to the edge, her fingers curling over the stone, her expression unreadable. Maddox stood beside her. I heard you humming this yesterday. I couldn't place it, so I asked someone to find it. It's a piece by a composer from Prague. He never wrote more than a handful of songs. Her eyes flicked to his. You remembered that? You said it reminded you of something you couldn't name. Marley turned to fully face him, her brows drawn. Why are you doing all this? Because I've never wanted someone to stay before, Maddox said, his voice lower now. Not like this. She looked away, jaw tight. I got a call this morning, she said after a pause. From the firm's creative director, they want to move me up. It's not official yet, but it's a real shot. He didn't respond, waiting. They want me to lead a new concept team. It's a 6-month trial. Congratulations, he said. There's a catch. Of course there is. They want me in Seattle, she said. In 2 weeks. The music swelled behind them, but neither of them moved. Do you want to go? He asked. I want the chance to prove I can do it, that I earned it. You did. But I also don't want to walk away from whatever this is, she said. And I don't know if I can have both. Maddox stepped closer. You don't have to choose, she looked at him sharply. Don't offer to buy me a place there or fly back and forth in your jet. That's not the point. I wasn't going to. Then what? I'll go with you. Marley froze. What? I've spent years avoiding anything that pulled me off track, but maybe I need to be off track. Maybe I need to stop living in glass towers and start figuring out what it means to actually live. She stared at him like he'd just spoken another language. You'd leave everything here. I can run my companies from anywhere. And the truth is, I've been looking for a reason to walk away from the noise. You just gave me one. Her voice dropped. This isn't some test, Maddox. If you come with me, you come as you are, not the man on magazine covers. Not the one who gets his way with a phone call, just you. I don't want to be anything else. The quartet shifted into a new melody and Marley's eyes glistened. You're serious, she said, completely. She stepped forward, placing a hand on his chest. Then you'd better learn how to make coffee in a tiny apartment, because I'm not letting you turn my place into a second penthouse. He caught her hand and brought it to his lips. Deal? She laughed, the sound catching in her throat, and he pulled her into an embrace that felt like more than just relief. It felt like arrival. 2 weeks later, they stood in front of a narrow brick building in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood. Maddox wore jeans and a navy sweater, his only concession to the man he'd once been a sleek black watch peeking from under his sleeve. Marley carried a box labeled Design Books and Snacks, her hair pulled up, cheeks flushed from the cold. This is it, she said, unlocking the door. They stepped into the apartment, a single bedroom, open kitchen, and large windows that overlooked the street. It was nothing like Maddox's estate, and it was perfect. Later that night, they sat on the floor, surrounded by unopened boxes, eating takeout from mismatched containers. Marley leaned against him barefoot, her laughter filling the room as he struggled to open a soda without spilling it. I don't think I've sat on a floor in 15 years, he muttered. Welcome to real life, she said. No marble, no staff, just sticky rice and dreams. He kissed her temple. Best upgrade I've ever made. The next morning, Marley stood in the doorway, watching Maddox sleep on the too short couch, arm thrown over his face, blanket barely covering him. Her phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. Team meeting 8:00 a.m. She didn't wake him. Instead, she slipped out quietly, her heart full and her steps light. Outside, the city was waking. Everything felt new. And inside that tiny apartment, Maddox Zane, former king of silence, master of control, was finally at peace. He hadn't gone looking for forever. But somehow, on a rain-soaked highway, it had found him anyway. Maddox adjusted the strap of the canvas duffel bag slung over his shoulder as he stepped out of the elevator and into the hallway of the design firm's Seattle office. The building was tucked between a yoga studio and a co-op cafe, two things he'd never imagined himself walking past daily. But this morning was different. He wasn't here to shadow Marley or hover at a distance. He was here because she'd asked him to meet her on the rooftop at noon. No context, no hints, just a time and a place. He stepped out onto the rooftop garden, squinting against the late morning sun. A breeze rolled through, carrying the scent of wet cedar and the faintest hint of espresso from below. Marley stood near the far wall, her back to him, arms crossed tight over her chest. "You're early," she said when she heard his footsteps. "You sounded like you had something serious to say," he replied, walking to her side. She glanced at him, her mouth twitching. "I got the contract," his brows lifted. "Permanent," she nodded. "They're offering me the lead role, full-time, my team, my terms." He didn't say congratulations, he didn't need to. She could see it in the way his shoulders eased, the way his hand found hers without hesitation. "There's something else," she said, voice softer now. Maddox turned fully toward her, watching her face. "I want to build something that's mine, remember?" she continued. "Not just work, a place, something that feels rooted." His grip tightened slightly. "What are you saying?" "I found a brownstone," she said. "Not big, not polished, but it has good bones, a backyard, a creaky staircase. And light God, the light in the kitchen is unreal. I want to restore it." "Make it home." He stared at her for a beat, then said, "Then we'll do it together." Her expression shifted, guarded but hopeful. "It's not a penthouse, Maddox. There's no concierge or valet. I don't care. You'll have to live through dust and paint samples." "You're going to hate it." "I'll be fine." She crossed her arms again. "And I want to host dinners, friends, maybe even my brother if he ever decides I'm not crazy." "I'll learn how to make lasagna." Marley blinked. "You'd really do all that?" "I already gave up the skyline for you," he said. "Giving up silence is a small price." She stepped closer, eyes searching his. "You've changed." "I've stopped hiding." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I love you." He didn't flinch. "I love you more than I ever thought I could." Her lips tilted. "We're really doing this, aren't we? Every messy, beautiful second of it." That afternoon, they signed the papers for the house together. Marley wore a navy wrap dress with her hair still damp from her morning shower, and Maddox insisted on reading every line of the contract himself, despite the agent's attempts to rush them. When the keys were placed in her palm, she looked at him with wide, stunned eyes. "It's ours," she whispered. He took the keys from her hand and slipped them into his pocket. "Let's go see our future." The brownstone wasn't much to look at yet. The front stoop was cracked. The floors inside creaked with every step. The kitchen was dated and the windows needed replacing. But the light she hadn't exaggerated. It poured in through tall panes, catching the dust in golden beams. They walked through the empty rooms in silence until they reached the small backyard, overgrown with ivy and weeds. A single leaning maple tree stretched toward the fence, its branches swaying in the wind. Maddox ran a hand over the back of his neck. "This is going to take time." Marley stepped beside him. "We have time." He turned to look at her, the woman who had once been a stranger on the side of a stormy road. "Do you want to get married?" She blinked. "Right now, no, but soon, not because it's expected, because I want to build a life with you, officially." She didn't hesitate. "Yes." He leaned down, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Then let's start here." Over the next few weeks, their lives took shape in ways neither of them had anticipated. Maddox, once the architect of skyscrapers and acquisitions, found himself mapping out closet dimensions and debating tile finishes at local hardware stores. Marley learned how to navigate permit applications, and Maddox learned how to use a level with minimal swearing. They hosted their first dinner party on a folding table in the gutted dining room, surrounded by exposed beams and laughter echoing through the unfinished walls. Marley's brother arrived, skeptical but curious, and left with a full stomach and a changed opinion. One morning, as Marley painted swatches on the living room wall, Maddox walked in holding a small bouquet of wildflowers from the backyard. "What's that for?" she asked. "No reason," he replied, placing them in the chipped mug on the windowsill. "Just felt like today deserved something simple." She turned, paintbrush in hand. "You know, I used to think happy endings were just an idea, something people wrote into stories to make the hard parts feel worth it. And now I know they're real. Because I'm living mine." He crossed the room, took the brush from her hand, and kissed her so gently it made everything else disappear. Not all love stories start with fireworks. Some start with broken engines, rainstorms, and the quiet decision to stay. And when they're built on truth, trust, and choice, they don't just last. They thrive.